In our last video, we introduced the concept of generative AI optimization, or as we're calling it, GAO, and why it matters for small businesses. So today, my colleague, Laura Mayer,
Oh,
and I, Erika Dickstein from Spring Insight, are going to continue talking about this topic, but we're going to actually start to talk directly to the kinds of organizations that we most commonly work with. So in this video, we're going to talk directly to you subject matter experts. So those of you who, are in professional services organizations or have sort of knowledge-based businesses where that's what you're selling is your knowledge. So Laura, first let's start out with, why does generative AI matter for subject matter experts?
well, that's a great question. It's going to matter for everyone because it's the future of search, right? And it's just a natural kind of evolution of how users search and how the bots, as we call them, the search bots, but how information then is sourced and presented to our user. So we see that all the time, right? More and more people are using ChatGPT or Perplexity or something like that, asking it and getting our search information from there.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm going to go backwards a little bit and say to anybody who's watching this, if you haven't watched our first video, whether you don't have to turn off the video right now and go back and watch that first. It's not reliant upon that information, but we do cover some of these big picture questions. And I think it's helpful to sort of contextualize what we're talking about now. But Laura, you're exactly right. And I'll continue on. As a subject matter expert, everything that you're selling is what's in your brain, right? You don't have, you're not an e-commerce site with with a couple thousand SKUs that you're selling. You're selling what's in your brain. And so the content that you create on your site is really about what you're selling. And so therefore, obviously, if people are using generative AI to find services such as those that are offered by your organization, and if you are a subject matter expert, trust me, that is what is happening now. It is not just people typing into Google, how do I find a consultant that will help me enter into this market? They're asking that question to a generative AI source.
Yeah, right. They're asking more complex questions too. And I think, like you said, they might not, before, if we were searching for something fractional CAO, we're not just searching for fractional CAO. But I think you hit on it right there when you said, how do I find a fractional CAO that can help me maximize my blah, 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 blah. So as our prompts become more complicated, this is really where we start to see generative AI producing and presenting information to fill that user request.
Yeah. So let's dive deep, as we're talking to subject matter experts, what are let's actually just really dive in, as a subject matter expert, what are the areas that you want to make sure are optimized for GAO?
Well, you're going to get your technical dev project manager answer here, right? But I'm thinking the back end things all the time, the stuff we see. So schema, that markup is what it's called. Most people don't even really know what that is because, again, it wasn't designed for humans necessarily. It was designed for the search bots. But what it is, it's different. It's finding the appropriate schema that tells what your content is or describes what it is in sort of a table of contents manner. And this is probably one of the easiest things you can do, really, is to institute appropriate schema for the content you're presenting.
Well, let's talk individually about what content, though, we do want to make sure is optimized. Starting out, service pages. For most subject matter experts, right, that's the core, that's the heart of the site. What are the things that we offer? So making sure that those pages are optimized, meaning you have added schema, as Laura discussed. We talked in the first video, we talked about schema quite a bit. And making sure that schema is in place, making sure that you're answering questions, that you're really creating that fertile ground for a generative AI to be able to find those solutions.
Yeah. Adding your author bylines, credible links to credible sources that support or complement the information you're presenting. Having a clear heading structure, that's such a simple thing and is so often overlooked, but is important for the search engines and for these language models that are now searching, for them to understand and crawl your content.
Absolutely. Writing answers to real world, writing answers to queries. So,
Yeah.
what are people asking that you're the answer to? Making sure that you have created content that answers that.
It's kind of a different way of looking at it, right? Like before we would design a web page and like, hey world, hey users, this is our information. These are the things we're presenting to you. Now it's a different approach. You need to guide your content based on what answering questions. What are the questions that these people are coming here to see, coming here to find out? And so that's a little different focus of how you present your information and structure your architecture.
100%. The next one we'll talk about is teams and bio pages. And
Mhm.
thinking about that information in that context is really also important. So it's not who are your team members, it's what are the problems that your team members have solved in the past, right?
Yeah.
But it's also using the appropriate schema. We're going to
Yeah.
talk about schema a lot whenever we talk about this, adding all of the credentials so that, again, you're answering those questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So finally, blog posts and articles. And again, I know we keep returning to this, but this is just so essential. Writing this content, it's not just, "Hey, let me tell you the latest thing that's going on in our industry. Let me tell you about my opinion about this, giving my voice, et cetera, et cetera." It is, we are answering questions because that is in the world of generative AI optimization, that's what we're always doing. We're always answering questions. So let's think about what, good versus great looks like. So good, we've been talking about fractional, what is a good, what is a fractional CTO? When does a startup need a fractional CTO, and what should they be looking for? That's a great question, right? Because
Right.
that
Right.
is a question that you're getting into the head of the kind of person who wants to hire you.
Yes, right. And that your site has taken the time to develop content on that, again, just adds to your authority and your trustworthiness. It's just a great strategy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And not just, by the way, because I think we need to be as clear as possible. You're not just answering that question, you're asking that question and answering that question, right? You're not just saying, "We are a great solution for," you are saying, "Are we a great solution? Yes, we're a great solution. Here's how we're a great solution." And that's why, as we discussed in our prior video, these FAQs are just essential, and putting them, not just having an isolated FAQ page, but actually sprinkling your content with questions and answers is so essential.
Yeah. And I think that's where it's beneficial too, to get outside of the organization to find out these questions, to find out sometimes our subject matter experts are so subject matter experty, right? They know their stuff so well that they don't even remember what those questions were. So it's important to always revisit your user personas, make sure they're still relevant and you're still strategizing content that speak to their journey.
Absolutely. So, I think I do want to touch on this because this is something I feel really strongly about. Even though we talked about the risks in our first video, so those people who've watched that are really well aware. I always want to make sure if people see things in isolation, we talk about this.
Mhm.
And that is, one of the big risks of pursuing a GAO strategy is that, well, these generative AI tools have certainly been known to sort of take content without giving back the credit for that content. And that is something that we certainly need to be aware